The Grand Canyon, one of the most visited natural wonders on the planet. Every year, nearly 6 million tourists stand at its edge, taking photographs of its vast, breathtaking beauty. They look down into the massive abyss, believing they are looking at millions of years of simple geological history. But what if I told you that right beneath their feet, hidden in the deepest, most inaccessible cliffs of the canyon, lies the greatest covered-up secret in modern human history? What if history as we know it is a complete and absolute lie? On April 5, 1909, the Phoenix Gazette, a highly respected American newspaper, published a front-page story that should have changed the world forever. The headline read, "Explorations in Grand Canyon, Mysteries of Immense Rich Cave Being Brought to Light." According to the detailed report, an explorer named G.E. Kincaid, funded by the world-famous Smithsonian Institution, discovered a massive underground citadel carved directly into the solid rock of the Grand Canyon. It was a subterranean city capable of housing over 50,000 people, but it wasn't empty. Inside this colossal cavern, Kincaid found intricate copper weapons, advanced geometric architecture, walls covered in mysterious hieroglyphs, and deep within the crypts, hundreds of mummies. But these were not Native American remains. The artifacts, the statues, and the mummies were entirely, undeniably ancient Egyptian pharaohs in the middle of the United States of America. Today, if you try to visit this specific area of the Grand Canyon, you will be met with restricted area signs, no-fly zones, and heavily armed military helicopters. Why did the Smithsonian completely erase this discovery from their records? What are they guarding inside those caves? And how did an ancient Egyptian civilization cross the ocean thousands of years before Columbus? Tonight on MindBlow Facts, we are embarking on a 30-minute deep dive into the forbidden zones of America. We are uncovering the lost expedition of 1909, the giant mummies of the canyon, and the terrifying truth that the government desperately wants you to forget. Prepare yourselves. The truth is finally coming out. The story begins on a quiet spring morning, April 5, 1909. The Phoenix Gazette was not a cheap tabloid looking for attention. It was a serious, highly respected publication. So, when they printed a massive front-page story claiming an ancient underground city had been found in the Grand Canyon, the nation paid attention. The man at the center of this unbelievable claim was a seasoned explorer named G.E. Kincaid. He was not a crazy conspiracy theorist seeking fame. According to the newspaper, Kincaid was an experienced adventurer working directly under the supervision of Professor S.A. Jordan from the prestigious Smithsonian Institution. For several months, Kincaid had been traveling entirely alone down the treacherous, raging waters of the Colorado River in a small wooden boat. His mission was to look for valuable minerals. But as he navigated the dangerous rapids of the Marble Canyon region, something highly unusual caught his eye. High up on the sheer east wall of the canyon gorge, roughly 2,000 feet above the riverbed, Kincaid noticed a strange discoloration in the rock formation. The stain on the cliff face did not look natural, it looked intentional. Driven by an explorer's instinct, Kincaid tied his small boat to the rocks and began a grueling, life-threatening climb up the vertical cliff. There were no trails, there were no ropes. One single mistake meant a fatal plunge into the violent river below. After hours of exhausting climbing, Kincaid finally reached the strange anomaly. As he pulled himself up onto a narrow ledge, his heart stopped. He wasn't looking at a natural cave formed by water or wind. He was standing in front of a massive, perfectly carved entrance. It was strategically positioned to be completely invisible from the river below and the canyon rim above. Whoever built this place wanted it hidden from the rest of the world forever. Kincaid pulled out his flashlight, clicked it on, and took his first steps into the darkness. Immediately, the light revealed something impossible. The walls were not rough and jagged. They were perfectly smooth, chiseled with incredible precision using advanced tools. The entrance opened up into a massive cavernous hallway that stretched endlessly into the absolute blackness of the mountain. And as Kincaid shined his light on the walls of this grand hallway, his blood ran cold. Deeply engraved into the solid rock were intricate, mysterious symbols. They were not Native American petroglyphs. They were not the markings of the Navajo or the Hopi tribes. Kincaid recognized them instantly. Carved into the heart of the American landscape were ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. As Kincaid ventured deeper into the darkness, the air grew cold and incredibly dry, a natural environment for perfect preservation. What he found inside was not a simple series of caves, but a massive engineered citadel carved into the very heart of the mountain. The layout was a masterpiece of ancient urban planning. A central hub stretched out with massive hallways radiating like the spokes of a wheel. It was designed to house an estimated 50,000 people. But as Kincaid's flashlight swept across the great hall, he froze. Dominating the center of the chamber was a colossal statue carved from solid stone. Some reports say it resembled a cross between the Buddha and the Egyptian god Anubis. It sat in a cross-legged position, holding a lotus flower in each hand, symbols of rebirth and eternal life found in the highest levels of Egyptian and Oriental mysticism. The walls around the statue were lined with stone shelves, and on those shelves were hundreds of artifacts. Copper tools as sharp as modern steel, gold vessels encrusted with precious gems, and beautifully glazed ceramics that looked as if they were made yesterday. But the most terrifying discovery was yet to come. Further down the main hallway, Kincaid found the entrance to the crypts. Row after row of stone benches were carved into the walls, and on every bench lay a body. They were perfectly mummified, wrapped in layers of fine linen that had survived for thousands of years in the desert air. But these were not ordinary men. Kincaid noted in his logs that these mummies were of unusual stature. Some measured over 9 feet tall. They were giants, and they were not alone. Near the head of every mummy stood a small glowing copper cup and a broken sword, the traditional burial rites of a warrior king civilization from across the sea. As the light of his flashlight flickered across the thousands of silent faces in the dark, Kincaid realized he wasn't just standing in a cave. He was standing in a forbidden tomb of a race that shouldn't have existed in America. Kincaid knew that what he had found was too big for one man. This wasn't just an archaeological discovery, it was an earth-shattering revelation that would rewrite every history book on the planet. He gathered a few small copper artifacts, wrapped them tightly, and immediately sent them to Washington, D.C., directly to the Smithsonian Institution. The response was instant. Within weeks, a heavily funded, highly secretive expedition was organized. According to the original Phoenix Gazette article, the Smithsonian dispatched a team of 30 to 40 scientists, led by the esteemed Professor S.A. Jordan. Their mission was to completely excavate the underground city. But then, something chilling happened. The moment the Smithsonian team arrived at the Grand Canyon, a massive curtain of silence was pulled over the entire operation. The Phoenix Gazette never published a follow-up story. Kincaid, the brave explorer who discovered the cave, completely vanished from public records. It was as if the man never existed, and the Smithsonian, they officially denied everything. If you contact the Smithsonian Institution today and ask about the 1909 Kincaid expedition or Professor S.A. Jordan, they will tell you that no such people ever worked for them. They will tell you that the newspaper article was a total hoax. They claim that absolutely no Egyptian or giant artifacts have ever been found in the Grand Canyon, but the evidence on the ground tells a very different story. Today, the exact location that Kincaid described in his logs, a remote section of the canyon near the Little Colorado River, is completely off-limits to the public. It is strictly enforced as a restricted area. If a hiker or an explorer tries to venture into these specific coordinates, they are immediately intercepted by armed park rangers or unmarked helicopters. Furthermore, if you look at a detailed map of the Grand Canyon today, you will notice something incredibly strange. The natural rock formations in this forbidden zone are not named after Native American tribes or American presidents. They have names like the Tower of Set, the Temple of Ra, the Cheops Pyramid, and the Osiris Temple. Why would the United States government name parts of its most famous natural landmark after ancient Egyptian gods, and then make it highly illegal for anyone to go near them? What exactly did the Smithsonian drag out of those caves under the cover of darkness in 1909? And where are the giant mummies hidden today? How is it possible for an ancient Egyptian civilization to exist inside the Grand Canyon? Mainstream historians tell us that crossing the Atlantic Ocean was impossible until Christopher Columbus did it in 1492, but science tells a very different story. In 1992, a German toxicologist named Dr. Svetla Balabanova made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the archaeological world. While testing the remains of Henut Tawi, an ancient Egyptian priestess, she found high concentrations of two specific chemicals in her hair and bones, cocaine and nicotine. There was just one massive problem. The coca plant and the tobacco plant did not exist anywhere in Africa, Europe, or Asia. They were completely exclusive to the Americas. For the Egyptian elite to consume massive amounts of cocaine and tobacco, there had to be a sophisticated global transoceanic trade network operating thousands of years before Columbus was even born. The ancients were crossing the ocean, and they were using massive ships to do it. But who exactly were these seafarers? Were they just regular humans or something else entirely? To find the answer, we must listen to the voices of the Native American tribes who have lived on that land for millennia. Across the United States, from the Paiute in Nevada to the Choctaw in the South, there is a consistent, terrifying oral tradition. They speak of a fierce race of pale-skinned, red-haired giants who arrived from across the Great Sea in massive boats. The Paiute people called them the Siteka. According to the legend, these giants were incredibly advanced, built massive structures, and waged devastating wars against the native tribes. For centuries, modern historians dismissed these Native American stories as simple myths. That was until 1911, when miners digging in Lovelock Cave, Nevada, broke through a rock wall and found themselves staring at giant human remains, some with tufts of red hair still attached to their skulls. When G.E. Kincaid found the 9-foot-tall mummies wrapped in Egyptian linen in the Grand Canyon, he wasn't finding a myth. He had stumbled upon the royal tombs of the exact same giants the Native Americans had been warning us about for thousands of years.